The moment your paycheck lands in your account, something happens in your brain before you've even opened the app to look at it. You already know roughly what the number is, and some part of your mind has already started spending it. The new thing you've been putting off, the takeout you've been craving, the item that's been sitting in your cart for a week and a half. It happens fast, and it happens to almost everyone. But here's what separates the people who actually build something financially from the people who end up wondering where it all went every single month. The first group has a system they run through every time money hits their account. Not a complicated one, not one that requires a spreadsheet degree or financial expertise, just a sequence they follow consistently, and that consistency is what makes it work. Most people run their finances completely backwards. They cover their bills, spend on whatever comes up, and then try to save whatever happens to be left at the end of the month. The problem is there's never anything left. It's the same as trying to fill a bucket with a hole in the bottom and being confused about why it stays empty. The people building real wealth flip that sequence entirely. They decide where money is going before it has a chance to disappear, and they treat every paycheck as a tool rather than a windfall. And the thing worth understanding about this is that the system works regardless of what you earn. Someone making $50,000 a year who consistently puts 10% towards savings and investment is going to end up in better financial shape than someone making $100,000 who spends every dollar. The higher income without a system doesn't build wealth. The lower income with a system does. Income matters, but the process matters more. The first thing the system requires is figuring out exactly what percentage of your take-home pay goes toward genuine necessities. Not a rough guess, an actual number. Necessities means housing, food that keeps you fed, basic transportation, utilities, and healthcare. It does not mean the streaming services, the gym membership that's mostly unused, the premium cable package, or the daily coffee stop. Those things might feel essential, especially in the moment, but they aren't required for survival and they don't belong in the necessity calculation. The place people consistently go wrong here is convincing themselves that everything they spend money on qualifies as a need. The car payment on something far more expensive than required becomes essential transportation. The restaurant habit becomes a social necessity. The daily coffee run becomes fuel for productivity. But if you're spending more than 60% of your take-home pay on things that are genuinely non-negotiable, you're either living somewhere that costs more than your income can support, or you're reclassifying wants as needs because it's more comfortable than acknowledging the choice you're making. Put a real number on it. Someone bringing home $4,750 a month after taxes, paying $1,800 in rent, $400 on a car payment, and $500 on groceries is already at $2,700, which is about 57% of take-home pay. That's a manageable range. But that same person might feel like they're barely getting by. And the reason is usually everything on top of those core expenses. The streaming subscriptions, the eating out, the small purchases that never feel significant individually, but quietly accumulate into hundreds of dollars every month. Once you know your actual necessity percentage, you know exactly how much money is genuinely available for everything else. And everything else is where real progress happens. Before any of that money goes anywhere optional, the second step is making sure every debt payment you have is current. This isn't about eliminating all debt immediately, though that's a worthy long-term goal. It's specifically about protecting your credit score and avoiding late fees, both of which can quietly undo financial progress that took months to build. Your credit score functions like a financial reputation, and that reputation shapes things you might not expect. It influences your mortgage interest rate, whether you qualify for a reasonable car loan, and in some situations, it even affects whether you can rent an apartment or get hired for certain jobs. What surprises most people about credit scores is how unforgiving the math is. Making 99% of payments on time is considered solid. Dropping to 97% causes a significant hit to your score. In school, 97% would earn you an excellent grade. In the credit system, it gets you flagged as higher risk. The rules themselves are actually simple. Pay at least the minimum on everything on time, every time. That's it. It won't make you feel wealthy, but it keeps the foundation solid. Once the debt payments are covered, the next priority is building an emergency fund, which most people ignore until they desperately need one. 3 to 6 months of your essential living expenses sitting in a savings account, you can access immediately, not invested in the market where it could lose value at the worst possible moment, not locked in a certificate of deposit where you'd owe a penalty to access it, just sitting there, liquid and boring, ready for the moment something goes wrong, because something always goes wrong. A car breaks down, a laptop dies, a medical bill arrives, a pet needs emergency care on a random Tuesday. None of these things are rare. They're just unpredictable in their timing. Going back to the earlier example, if your monthly necessities run $2,700, your target emergency fund is somewhere between $8,000 and $16,000. That can feel like an impossible number when you're currently paycheck to paycheck, but the goal isn't to save it all at once. It's to build it gradually every pay period until it's there. What people get wrong about emergency funds is treating them like investments. They move the money into riskier accounts chasing better returns, or into accounts they can't access quickly, and then when an actual emergency hits, the money is either worth less than it was, or they can't get to it without paying a penalty. The whole point of an emergency fund is availability, not return. A high-yield savings account insured by the government is exactly right. You're not trying to grow it. You're trying to have it when you need it. Once that fund is established, you've moved from surviving financially to actually building. That's when investing for the future becomes the priority. And this is where the compounding math starts working in your favor in a way that's genuinely hard to overstate. If your employer offers any form of retirement match, that is your first investment priority, full stop. Think about what an employer match actually is. Your company is offering to give you free money in exchange for you putting some of your own money into a retirement account. If they match 3% and you earn $60,000 a year, contributing $1,800 means they contribute another $1,800 on top of it. You have doubled that money before it's had a chance to do anything. There is no other investment that guarantees a 100% return on day one. Not capturing that match is one of the most straightforward ways to leave money on the table that most people don't even realize they're doing. Beyond the match, aiming to invest around 10% of your gross income toward retirement is the target. The reason starting early matters so dramatically is what compounding does over decades. Someone who puts away $300 a month starting at 25, earning an average annual return of 8%, reaches roughly $1 million by 65. Someone who waits until 35 to start the exact same amount ends up with around $400,000. The 10-year delay costs about $600,000. Time is not just helpful when it comes to investing, it's the primary variable. The mistake most people make here is spending so much time researching the perfect investment strategy that they never actually start. Months go by comparing funds, reading about different approaches, trying to optimize something they haven't even begun. For the vast majority of people, a diversified index fund tracking the overall market is completely sufficient to build real wealth over time. You don't need to pick individual stocks, predict market movements, or outsmart professional investors who have been doing this for decades. You just need to start and keep going. After retirement investing is running automatically, the focus shifts to any remaining debt outside of your mortgage. This is emotionally charged territory for a lot of people because debt often carries guilt or regret attached to it. But the strategic question is straightforward. There are two approaches that both work. The avalanche method tackles the highest interest rate debt first, which minimizes the total interest you pay over time and is the mathematically optimal path. The snowball method pays off the smallest balance first, regardless of interest rate, which isn't the most efficient mathematically, but generates visible wins quickly and tends to keep people motivated through the process. Personal finance is ultimately more about behavior than mathematics. If seeing a debt disappear completely keeps you engaged with the process, the snowball method is the right choice for you, even if it costs a little more in interest over time. The only strategy that fails is switching back and forth between approaches or avoiding the debt entirely in hopes that it resolves itself. Once the employer match is secured and debt is being actively addressed, the door opens to broader investing, your own retirement accounts beyond what the employer provides, taxable brokerage accounts, additional investment vehicles that make sense for your specific situation. Each of these builds on the previous steps, which is why the sequence matters. You don't start with advanced investing while carrying high interest debt and no emergency cushion. You build the foundation first and then you build on top of it. The whole system is simple enough to explain in a few minutes, and that simplicity is partly why people underestimate it. It doesn't require sophistication. It doesn't require a financial background. It requires following the same sequence every single time money arrives and not skipping steps because something optional looks appealing. The people who do that consistently, regardless of income level, end up somewhere different from the people who treat every paycheck like an opportunity to spend first and figure the rest out later. The difference between those two outcomes over 20 or 30 years is enormous.